With the latest agriculture news from across the state and nation, it's time for the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. Here's your host, Sabrina Halvorson.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning on the AgNet News Hour. Coming up later, the Almond Board is taking applications for 11 industry committees or work groups. We'll have more on that. But to start off the day today, food production by farmers and civilians was a key factor in the success of the D-Day invasion 80 years ago today. Gary Crawford has this report.
A landing was made this morning on the coast of France by troops of the Allied Expeditionary Force. This landing...
It was that pre-recorded announcement by General Dwight D. Eisenhower, June 6, 1944, that let the public know about D-Day and what was happening at that moment on the shores of Normandy.
Heavy firing now just behind us, and anti-aircraft burst in the sky.
155,000 troops landing on the beaches, troops who had an edge not only in weapons but also in food and nutrition, an edge that helped make D-Day successful.
Certainly, if you have to deal with just getting food to your troops, they're not going to have the same level of energy or ability to withstand the stresses and trials of an invasion like that.
In fact, Agriculture Department historical expert Ann Efland says the edge in food played a critical role in the entire U.S. war effort. In fact, 30 months before D-Day, just after Pearl Harbor, President Roosevelt told American farmers,
"You have a most grave responsibility to the nation now and for the duration of this war."
Ann Efland says the country's farmers made valiant efforts to boost food production for the war effort, working against tough conditions.
There were restrictions on use of rubber and steel, which affected use of farm machinery. So there was a lot of effort to help farmers understand how to better repair machinery that they already had, to share machinery around different regions to be sure there was enough.
But the biggest shortage was labor. Many of the nation's farmers were being drafted into the Army.
So there were efforts to mobilize women, rural women, and bring in women from urban areas, to mobilize high school boys and girls to work on the farms.
And efforts to guide farmers to grow things better suited for wartime.
Oilseed crops, for example, that could be good livestock feed and provide oil, which was also could be used for industrial purposes to overcome some of our shortage of oil, because that's a heavily used material for the armed forces.
Meanwhile, food was rationed in this country, and civilians everywhere were urged to plant victory gardens to supplement their food supply. This allowed President Roosevelt to tell the nation that because of all these efforts, particularly on the parts of farmers,
there is enough food today for all of us, and enough left over to send to those who are fighting with us.
And Ann Efland says it made those troops
ready to fight, ready to produce, ready to do whatever was needed because they were well fed.
And that contributed to the success of D-Day. Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
An American Farm Bureau Federation young farmer testified before the Senate Agriculture Committee's subcommittee on commodities, risk management, and trade. Chad Smith has more on the discussion centered around the Farm Bill.
Kevin Lucier, chair of the American Farm Bureau Federation's Young Farmer and Rancher Committee, recently gave testimony before the Senate Agriculture Committee. Lucier says he spoke about the challenges facing young farmers and ranchers.
He talked about the importance of passing a bipartisan farm bill and all that comes with that, Title I programs and the farm safety net, as well as highlighting the availability of capital for young farmers and ranchers to be able to get started in the agriculture industry.
He says it is critical for farmers and ranchers to tell their story to elected officials.
When you can get up there and say, for example, the dairy margin coverage program and what that means to my farm, I think it really gives the senators or congressional members a great example of what these programs actually do, because I think they see them as a policy. They don't necessarily see them how it affects Kevin Lucier and his family farm.
That's why it's important that Congress get a farm bill passed this year. Lucier says he got involved in advocating for agriculture after approaching State Farm Bureau members about his challenges.
They let me know that I'm not alone. There's young farmers and ranchers across this country that are dealing with the same issues, and it allowed me to learn and be trained on how to use my voice and be an advocate for agriculture, especially when it comes to passing a farm bill like this and the dire need of it. It's critical that we use our voice and tell our story.
Farmers and ranchers of any age can get involved in advocacy at fb.org/advocacy. Chad Smith, Washington.
You are listening to the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halvorson. In today's National Spotlight, the lowest U.S. drought coverage in more than 4 years is reflected in the size of such coverage in crop and commodity production areas. Rod Bain reports.
The final U.S. drought monitor for meteorological spring 2024 revealed.
If you look at the overall continental United States drought coverage at the end of May, that 12.55% number is the lowest that we have seen in more than 4 years.
And USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says this is reflected when looking at drought coverage by crops and commodities, particularly across several key spring crop production areas.
Corn in drought in late May, just 5% of the production area. Very similar picture with soybeans, just 3% of the U.S. production area in drought. Cotton belt, only 5% of the U.S. cotton production area in drought as we head to the end of May, 1% of the U.S. peanut production area, and just 7% of the U.S. rice production area.
He adds remaining patches of drought in the Great Plains are impacting some crops grown in that region, such as sorghum and winter wheat.
Looking at the sorghum crop, we did see a very slight increase in the percentage of the U.S. production area in drought. Pretty much the same story with winter wheat. We see 1/4 of the U.S. production area in drought, kind of focused on that key production area on the central Great Plains, still experiencing some drought impacts.
One crop that usually does not come up in crops and drought discussions is sugarcane. Yet, for the U.S. drought monitor for the period ending May 28th, Rippey says it's worth noting.
It has been a very hot and dry spring across Florida's peninsula. That does include Florida's sugarcane production areas. And for that reason, we see 53% of the U.S. sugarcane production area experiencing drought near the end of May. Hopefully that will be alleviated when the rainy season kicks in across Florida next month.
Turning to commodities of hay and cattle in drought.
Just 7% of the U.S. hay production area in drought on May 28th, down from 12% at the beginning of the month. And that pretty much goes hand in hand with our cattle inventory. Just 12% of the U.S. cattle inventory in drought as we approach the end of May, down from 17% on April 30th.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
The U.S. is a partner with world organizations that are trying to boost food safety and reduce food-related illness. Gary Crawford has more.
It was back in December of 2018 when the United Nations voted to organize a World Food Safety Day, which would be held every June 7th, starting in 2019. The purpose?
To raise awareness and inspire action on food safety across the world in order to reduce instances of foodborne illness,
which is a big problem globally, according to Dr. Emilio Esteban. He's the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Undersecretary for Food Safety. He gave us some shocking numbers.
Around the globe, around 600 million people get sick because of foodborne illness every year. About 420,000 of those, almost 500,000 people, die because of foodborne illnesses.
And so Dr. Esteban says U.S. and international groups are working together to set food safety standards and help countries, particularly low-income countries, meet those standards to reduce food-related illnesses.
We're working together to make safe food for the world.
But he says food-related illness is not just a problem of low-income countries. Even though the U.S. has the safest food system in the world, we still have some of those food-related illnesses here in the U.S. as well. About 48 million cases a year, many of them caused by us consumers not being careful, not following basic food safety guidelines. The director of the World Health Organization's Nutrition and Food Safety Office, Dr. Francesco Branca, talked about what we consumers should do when handling food.
First of all, of course, hygiene. Wash your hands, wash the surfaces, wash your products, the fruit and vegetables you eat, particularly if you eat them raw. Then separate the raw from the cooked. When you prepare food, when you store food. Then third, you have to cook food thoroughly at the right temperature.
And store it at the right temperature as well. What are the right temperatures? How can we make sure we're handling food safety? Luckily, the U.S. Department of Agriculture has experts you can ask at the department's Meat and Poultry Hotline. Meredith Carruthers is one of those experts, and here's how to get your food safety questions answered.
So if you want to talk to a live food safety expert, you can call us on the Meat and Poultry Hotline. We're open Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. You can reach us at the phone, at 1-888-674-6854. So it's 1-888-MP Hotline. You can also live chat with us same times, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time at ask.usda.gov. If you have any questions, when we're not open or not available live, you can send us an email at mphotline@usda.gov. And then we do have food safety messages, FAQs, questions and answers that you can search 24 hours a day as well at Ask USDA.
That's ask.usda.gov. Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
That's today's National Spotlight. Now for the Livestock Report, David Geiger has this report.
Empty grass is the phrase this year, making poor forage for cattle producers across northeast Iowa. That, according to Dale Lesline with the Dyersville Hay Auction. He says plenty of rain and great temperatures is not enough to make good feed value.
A lot of the farmers are all talking about how much additional minerals the cows out in the pasture are using right now, and my cattle have actually gone back to eating old crop hay out of the feeders despite having 2 to 3 feet of grass in the pastures. There's just very little feed value in the pasture grass right now due to the excessive moisture and lack of sunshine on it.
The RFV, or relative feed value, is way less than Lesline would expect.
I saw some hay that was baled on the 19th of May, which typically should be in that 140 to 170 relative feed value range at 100, and so it's not been a good year for first crop quality.
All this with the latest Iowa crop report showing 70% of pastures in good or excellent condition. Additionally, there isn't a lot to supplement the pasture. Lesline hasn't seen much old crop left over.
We've seen basically hay that was baled too wet or hay that was going through a sweat, and we weren't sure if it was going to cure or not. But there's really been no good dry hay made. I know a lot of farmers are trying to chop their hay to get into silo, but it's so wet it's even hard to even get out in the fields right now.
Another issue facing the hay market, cheap dairy quality alfalfa. Lesline says his latest auctions saw it going for $240 to $260 a ton, while normal bulk averaged $200 to $230 a ton.
The market right now does not pay the dairy farmer for fluid milk. It is more for the composites with the proteins, the butter fats on it. So if he feeds less dairy hay, he gets less milk, but he gets a higher quality milk that will in turn get him more money on it. So the dairy hay market has really gone down the last year and a half. The demand out here is just not what it used to be.
I'm David Geiger reporting.
This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halvorson. We will be back in just a moment with more agriculture news. Coming up in a few moments, we'll have today's This Land of Ours report, but first, more of the day's agriculture news. And with today's AgNet West headlines, here's Brian German.
An Oregon State University project seeks to bolster biosecurity and foreign disease mitigation for cattle producers. Funded by a $75,000 grant from the Western Extension Risk Management Education Center, the project aims to prepare cattle producers in Oregon, California, and Idaho for potential outbreaks of foreign diseases like foot and mouth disease. The initiative involves creating a rapid information network among cooperative extension agents and veterinarians using a train-the-trainer model. This model trains extension agents who then educate cattle producers through workshops, publications, and local meetings. The dissemination of information is intended to help cattle producers be prepared for any potential foreign animal disease outbreak. The goal is to reach at least 500 cattle producers, improving their readiness for disease outbreaks and encouraging compliance with protocols during such events. Industry groups are celebrating the introduction of the Capital for Beginning Farmers and Ranchers Act. Introduced by Representatives Marilyn Strickland, Alma Adams, Jimmy Panetta, and Senator Peter Welch, the act aims to support new farmers by directing the Farm Service Agency to create a multi-year loan pilot program. This program will offer flexible loans with reduced interest rates and collateral requirements designed to cover initial assets and the development of production and management systems. Key features include loans up to $100,000, repayment terms of 3 to 10 years, and robust technical assistance. The act addresses the significant startup costs that new farmers face, such as establishing financial management systems, increasing soil fertility, and building business infrastructure. The legislation is being supported by groups such as the Institute for Agriculture and Trade Policy and the National Center for Appropriate Technology. The bill is expected to alleviate certain financial burdens by providing necessary capital and support to ensure long-term success and sustainability in farming operations. When wine demand is lower, wineries can be more selective when it comes to grape quality. President of Allied Grape Growers, Jeff Bitter, said that last year was particularly challenging when it came to rejection of grapes.
In years like this where there's a general lack of demand, the scrutiny becomes a little higher on quality. And the wineries are looking a little bit more for those problems that they might be able to reject grapes for, things like excess volatile acid or rot or mildew. So generally speaking, the way wine grape contracts are written, there's lots of standards and expectations for certain quality to make the best wines. And in many years, there's some flexibility there. There's things that can be done in wineries to adjust for certain issues that may arise in the field. But when we have those problems and the demand is not very strong, then it is just kind of an open door to be able to refuse acceptance of the grapes. And it's contractual, right? I mean, it's in the contract. There are standards that need to be met. So it's just kind of a matter of, in what years are those standards enforced and which years are a little bit more flexible on enforcing them.
The third annual FIRA USA event will be taking place October 22nd through the 24th at the Yolo County Fairgrounds in Woodland. Senior Vice President of Innovation at Western Growers, Walt Duflock, explained how the event has evolved each year.
We launched it 2 years ago in Fresno. We got about 1,000 people to come talk ag tech robotics for specialty crops. It was fantastic. We moved it to Salinas last year, put it at the Rodeo grounds, changed the format a little. We gave folks a chance to attend the demonstrations for all 3 days. We had a lot more students there. Bottom line is we ended up with 2,000 people. And this year we're moving to Yolo County. And it's been great. We've had good partners up there with University of California, the Ag Natural Resources team. They've got some great acreage for us. They've got some great farming for us to walk into. We'll do a lot at Yolo County Fairgrounds, but this year we're going to have more nuts and more vine automation solutions. And this year we'll have more off-campus stuff where you can go to some custom demonstrations for just a couple of technologies that go deeper than just the 15 to 30-minute demos on site at Yolo County Fairgrounds. So still the same premise. We want you talking to the operators. We want you hearing from the growers. We want you hearing from the folks that are doing the work, leading the pack. And we want you to be able to see all this stuff on site. We're also going to take some folks off site for some stuff over the course of 3 days. So we're excited about the movement around the state. We're excited to get nuts and vines a little more engaged. And we think October is going to be a blast.
I'm Brian German for AgNet West Radio Network.
It's a first-of-its-kind trade mission for the USDA. That's coming up on This Line of Hours.
We've never had a tribal nation trade mission until now.
Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack with the announcement at the National Congress of American Indians Wednesday in North Carolina. Undersecretary of Trade and Foreign Agricultural Affairs Alexis Taylor will lead the delegation of 15 tribal and Native Hawaiian agribusinesses and 13 Native Nation ag leaders during the June 17th through 20th mission to Vancouver, British Columbia. The focus of the mission is
to talk about what is being produced in Indian country in terms of trying to expand market access to those items to folks in Canada. And this begins a process of expanding opportunity.
Recent Census of Agriculture data suggest ag production from native populations contributes $8 billion annually to the U.S. domestic food economy. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
The National Pork Producers Council, or NPPC, hosted a policy panel discussion at the 2024 World Pork Expo on Wednesday, where producer leaders and experts highlighted the need to work with both sides of the aisle to support America's pork producers. NPPC CEO Brian Humphreys led the panel discussion with his opening comments.
I'd be remiss, though, if we didn't start off acknowledging that the last 2 years for our industry has been pretty tough. And while we're looking at hopefully a few better days ahead of us, we also have to recognize a bit of the softening of the futures market here that we've seen. And yet, as we look at that, we've got not only market challenges facing our industry, but as we talk today, we have new policy challenges that we haven't faced before as an industry, whether we talk about things like Proposition 12 or the constant threats that remain out there as an industry like foreign animal disease, African swine fever, or we talk about the impending trade challenges that seem to just pop up every once in a while. Our industry faces a tremendous amount of challenges and uncertainty, but that's why the National Pork Producers Council exists, is to be at the forefront of those challenges, to see them coming, and to be prepared to respond to them and to push back, but also to be proactive against those efforts and make sure that we're putting the U.S. pork industry in the best light.
He had these thoughts on the Farm Bill.
Yeah, it really does. And Chase can talk about the politics around the Farm Bill, but as we look at the Farm Bill that just passed out of the House Ag Committee, incredibly happy with what GT has worked on and put together there in a bipartisan fashion, right? We had folks from both parties having conversations and engaging there, but one of the big threats that remains facing our industry is foreign animal disease. African swine fever is an example. And $233 million was put towards our three-legged stool of foreign animal disease prevention and preparedness. A recognition of the impact of the Beagle Brigade and ensuring that that's included so that we have that frontline defense at the airports and ports of entry to protect products from coming in. Working on trade and MAP and FMD funding to ensure that we have what we need there. Just phenomenal understanding of what our industry needs, what the livestock industry needs, and what all of agriculture needs.
Good.
And we look forward to continuing those conversations as we move to the full House and obviously the full Senate. So some tremendous opportunity and starting point there. To your point of reflecting of the industry, I'll give a shout out to both parties and folks in both chambers. They understood and heard the needs of the industry. And they understood that foreign animal disease, Proposition 12 is a challenge. And making sure that we could continue to work on trade and export markets. That's a recognition of the challenges that we face today and into the future. And I give them credit for that.
NPPC President Lori Stevermer also gave comments on the Farm Bill.
As farmers, we're fixers, we're doers, and we added a third definition, we're fighters. And so for us to see the Farm Bill move slowly is frustrating, but I think we have to be patient and know that all that work that the staff is doing behind the scenes is valuable, because we did tell the staff to be strategic, to be a driving force, because that's what our producers want from us. So I think there's a lot that's being asked of the Farm Bill. Chase knows it better than I do, but as producers, we have to stay focused, and we have to use our grassroots efforts. Chase alluded to it a little bit earlier. Producers have been excellent over the last few months. We've had fly-ins, mini fly-ins. We've had meetings in members' own home districts. There's been letters. So staying engaged, talking about what it means to them is really important.
Chase Adams is the Assistant Vice President of Domestic Policy.
We've got to get a farm bill done, right? There's a lot of talk about what the 119th Congress might look like, who's going to be in the White House, what the policies are going to be. And as I look forward, I have no idea, just as the rest of us don't. But this is an opportunity. We've got the right people in the right place at the right time. And for this industry facing challenges like African swine fever and Prop 12, these are challenges that hit us from all sides, and this is the opportunity to address those issues. So we've got to keep the momentum on. We've got to keep the foot on the gas pedal, on the accelerator, and make sure that we get this done, because our producers deserve it, our producers need it, and this is the time to get it done.
He was asked what's standing in the way of getting the Farm Bill done.
And I hate to say it, it's coming down to politics, and that's why we've got to keep the pressure on, especially as we look at, the roadmap's pretty short, right? I mean, we're coming up on elections in November. That's going to be here before we know it. And so we've got to just make sure that the lawmakers keep hearing from producers that we need to have a farm bill, right? If there's not some action in the Senate by August recess, I want every producer out there to be talking at every single one of these meetings saying, why haven't you done a farm bill? The House made a good first step. Chairman Thompson and I have talked a lot about this. We were the only group, a while back, not too long ago, everyone said, this thing it's a dead letter, right? This isn't going to happen. Chairman Thompson and the pork industry were the only ones that said, we've got to make this happen, and we've got to keep the pressure on.
Maria Zaiba, Vice President of Government Affairs with NPPC, discussed trade issues.
Unfortunately, we have not been negotiating new market access and new comprehensive trade agreements. And that was the key message being delivered by myself to the administration yesterday and to the staff is we need to get new market access. We understand we've been patient, but our industry is heavily dependent on these foreign markets, and we've got to address all the issues, not just some of them.
She also discussed funding for market programs.
House version of the Farm Bill, they have doubled the MAP and FMD programs. These are the two programs, market access programs and foreign market development programs, that are being used by the industry broadly to market and differentiate our product from our competitors. And so we have been pushing on this within a coalition within agriculture for over a decade now to increase MAP and FMD funding for those sorts of activities and programming. And we're really excited that in the House version of the Farm Bill, we got that doubling of the funding. Now it's up to the Senate. I know that this has been a topic of conversation at USDA, and it's certainly something that we want to make sure that we carry over, because my job, my team's job is to lower the trade barriers, which we do. But if you can't differentiate your product from your competitors, then you're still going to have an issue entering that market. And so that's where these program funds are so vital. And I also think it's very important to mention that we do fall behind, because our competitors in the European Union, they have similar programs and they've been increasing their funding, and ours has been static for a number of years, for a number of farm bills. So I think, I'm optimistic that we'll be able to carry this through. But I think it's very important to continue to increase those funds.
Then she was asked about California's Prop 12 and whether California voters really understood the effects Prop 12 would have. Here is her response.
Clearly they didn't, because USDA's own study has proved that Californians are now suffering from 20% less pork on their shelves and a price increase of 20%.
Yeah.
So clearly, I think, I've said this before, if Californians believed that they would have to be sourcing product from Europe or Brazil or other foreign countries and creating that greenhouse gas emission of that transportation creates, they probably wouldn't have voted for Prop 12, knowing all the intricacies, that it's not better for animal welfare, it's not better for the environment, and it's causing all sorts of different issues on the supply side and on the pricing.
This is the AgNet News Hour. We will be back in just a moment with more agriculture news. Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here is this week's Almond Update.
Today's specialty crop news brought to you by the Almond Board of California. You can find them online at almonds.com. We're joined this morning by Senior Specialist of Industry Communications for the Almond Board, Taylor Hillman, to talk about opportunities to get involved in the industry. And now we've covered ABC's Board of Directors as being a good chance to serve the almond industry, but there are some other areas where industry members can serve as well in committees and working groups. And Taylor, that window to submit an application and participate in those is currently open, correct?
Yeah, that's right. The Almond Board of California is openly recruiting to industry members to join a committee or a work group for ABC. ABC, we have more than 150 active almond industry members that volunteer on board-appointed committees, subcommittees, and working groups. It's a great way to help ensure that almonds remain an essential crop in California and are demanded by consumers around the world. We're always on the lookout for new volunteers. We accept applications during about a 1-month process, and then the committee seats are seated in August. So this is the recruitment time now, and it is open for anyone who's interested.
And with that, there's a variety of different groups there to where people that are interested in maybe different aspects of what's taking place have an opportunity to serve. What are some examples of some of these committees and some of their roles that they have?
Yeah, that's right, Brian. There's 11 different committees or work groups that we have at the Almond Board of California, and it can be from finance, global communications, trade and regulatory, all the way to almond quality and food safety, marketing. There's a variety of topics that will intrigue industry members in their area pertaining to their job or what they're interested in. Some examples of this is the Almond Quality and Food Safety Services Committee. this is a great opportunity for the handler side, the post-harvest side of things in regards to the almond industry. There's the biomass work group who really looks at that co-products type added value stuff after, again, with the hulls from almond harvest. There's the environmental stewardship work group, or the basic work groups that really help ABC function, which is the Finance and Audit Committee of what the Almond Board of California does. My committee, which is the Global Communications Committee, how we talk to the industry and to consumers around the world. And then, of course, the Global Market Development Committee that really looks at how we're marketing almonds around the world. And you can see the different markets that we do and help, make sure that your input is involved in how we make decisions on how we market. So just a lot of different topics out there that people can get involved with. And again, in the area that they're interested in.
So lots of different opportunities for a lot of different interests there. And in terms of serving on these committees, what is that experience like? What is the expectation there for responsibility? I'm assuming that you get together, you meet and discuss some of these things, but what's more of that experience entail?
Yeah, so these committees have meetings somewhere between quarterly and every other month. It can depend based on the committee or work group. And it's usually a 1 day, 3 or 4 hour meeting. And the nice thing is that it's specific to that topic. I think people who are interested in getting involved in the Almond Board of California may think that running for a board spot is the way to do that. And it is. However, when you're on that board, you're kind of looking at all of the different aspects that make up the industry and the Almond Board of California. By joining one of these committees, you get to singularly focus on that section of the industry and the Almond Board. It does help you kind of get experience on how these meetings are ran, what these meetings entail. You learn where and when input is needed, and you really help guide the efforts in that area. And then those committees and work groups report to the board and, help lay out the foundation of what ABC does. So it's really a great opportunity for someone to kind of get their feet wet, really to get a taste of what getting involved in the leadership of ABC is. Like I said, it may be time-wise the same amount as the board as far as what's required, but it's definitely an easy way to get involved without having to be on a board in a voting position or something like that. So I think it's a great opportunity for anyone who's thought about getting involved. And the other nice thing is that all of these committees and work groups, the meetings are open to the public. If you don't officially want to sign up yet, come watch one or join one virtually and just see how these meetings are ran, what the content is. You're going to learn a lot of information that you may not have known before. It's just a great way to know what's happening at ABC and a great way to get introduced to some of the leadership in the industry.
Very cool. And now, where can people find out some more in-depth information about these committees and work groups and how to get started there?
Yeah, so we have a lot of information on the website, almonds.com/committees. If you forget that, in the submenu under the About Us section, there is a committees page. When you go to this page, you are going to see an introduction, a short introduction and mission statement for all 11 of the committees and workshops. Under the mission statement, it will be a statement of interest form, and this will take you to a form to fill out. I encourage everybody to read that mission statement and then click on the form, because that next page where the form is, you're going to learn a lot more about it. You're going to learn about the primary target audiences. You're going to learn about the secondary target audiences. You're going to learn about responsibilities for both members and alternates, the skill sets and expertise that the committee is looking for. So there's just a lot more information if you click through to the next page. So again, almonds.com/committees, and that will take you to this page where you can find out just a ton of information on everything that's involved. And then also, if you are interested in maybe not signing up just yet, but you do want to watch or join one of these meetings either in person or virtually, you can go to almonds.com/events. That's just our calendar page. But under each committee meeting, there is for more information, email a member of the ABC staff. There's a link right there where you can get the login information or the details on the time and location. Most of the meetings happen at the ABC offices in Modesto, but you can get all the information you need to join those meetings and to check it out. So again, almonds.com/committees or almonds.com/events. We'll give you more information on both of those.
So lots of information available on the website there. And now lastly, what's the deadline to make a submission for these?
That's a good point. So August, these committees and work groups are seated. And so the deadline to do this is the middle of July. We don't have a specific date, but you're going to want to do it sooner rather than later. There is a specific number of seats for each committee. So first come, first serve. If two equal applicants come in and one came in before the other, it's first come, first serve. So if you are interested, I suggest doing it sooner than later. And again, it has opened up as of this last Friday, and it will run until the middle of July.
This segment is brought to you by Live Earth Products. To get to know a little more about Live Earth Products, we're talking on the phone today with Vice President Russell Taylor. And to start us out, Russell, tell us about the Conservationist of the Year and what goals you would like to see occur this year.
So this is continuing work as the Certified Crop Advisor Conservationist of the Year. They're looking for certified crop advisors who are trying to aid farmers in getting information or conservation practices. One thing we've identified that is keeping farmers from getting conservation practices is actually just information and products. The current federal regulations actually were written in the 1950s. And at that time, those rules were only restricting fertilizers and pesticides. They didn't put into account other developing technologies such as plant biostimulants and some of these newer technologies we're using in agriculture. And so for 2024, our goal is to really help change the laws that are impacting biostimulant regulation to allow them to be used and treated as a fertilizer, not as a pesticide.
So what does that process look like to go through that and get that change to be where it needs to be?
Well, actually, there's a very long on-ramp. We've been working on this since 2014. And the bricks that we've laid on this path are now hopefully being included in the Farm Bill. So more than anything now, it's just supporting the work we've already done, trying to get legislators aware of the problem and hopefully enact those rules. There's an act right now by California regulators. It's called the Plant Biostimulant Act. And so the best thing that farmers can do is call up and say, hey, we support this language. This is going to give us more tools to enact those conservation practices and have more products available to us.
Thank you, Russell. To get to know more about Live Earth Products, you can visit them online at liveearth.com. That is spelled LIVEARTH.com. Wrapping up our show today, CRP enrollment is underway. Rod Bain has all the details.
Sign up is now underway for the Grassland Conservation Reserve Program. And as USDA Farm Service Agency Administrator Zach Ducheneau notes,
the program has a little shorter application window this year. It's going to be a little over 3 weeks to June 28th, and then we'll get all of those together. We will batch and score them, and then we'll make determinations about what threshold we want to set that at given the available acres, because we do have continuous CRP on an ongoing basis.
The administrator says what sets Grassland CRP apart from other Conservation Reserve Program offerings is its basis in working lands conservation.
In Grassland CRP, producers offer their acres for enrollment. They'll receive a rental payment to enlist a grazing plan, to develop a grazing system. What's unique about Grassland CRP is once you get enrolled in the program, you also have access to cost share opportunities to develop the infrastructure that might be needed to bring that conservation plan to bear.
I'm Rod Bain reporting, Washington, D.C.
That's today's top agriculture news. I'm Sabrina Halvorson. Thank you for sharing your morning with us.
To get more information on the topics you heard today, visit AgNet West online at agnetwest.com. You can also stay connected by following us on our social media at AgNet West on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also find our broadcast team of Brian German and Sabrina Halvorson on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for listening to the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. AgNet West Radio Network, your primary choice for agriculture news.